Gute Woche. In Washington, D.C., there was once somebody who got up at an evening of many, many speeches. And he says, from the way they're calling up speaker after speaker, it looks like the organizers have decided that all that needs to be said has been said. But not everyone has yet said it. But I'll be makatzer so that we should be able to continue with the program, even though Reb Shaya is showing me that he has time. But I don't know what the schedule is of the Bochrim who are here. And I will just try to say what I believe should be said and to make it in a way which doesn't disrupt the schedule. I also want to point out that Rabbi Zeitlin, who organizes so much of the Yarchei Kallah, deserves a nice round of applause. And since my father always has been saying for many, many years, machen zichra zu bedanken Yossi Futafas and Shlomi Futafas, I want to reiterate the thanks, because without them, it wouldn't be possible. And Fashtetzach, all of the other thanks that Rabbi Zeitlin mentioned. So be'emes, it's a kavod to be part of Yarchei Kallah for several reasons. First of all, you watch the great Rosh Yeshivas and Mashpiyim and the Rabbonim of our time coming here to offer and to debate and to share words of the Rebbe, their insights into today's matzav, different things that they learn in our Machadash, in Inyonim of Halacha, Nigla, Chassidus. It's mamash machaya to see the spirit of what Yarchei Kallah is from the first Yarchei Kallah in the times of the Gemara actually being implemented, which the Rebbe very much wanted. And to the Bochrim, I want to tell you that being Mishtatef in the Melave Malka is something that the Rebbe personally requested when there was a Fabrengen, the Shabbos of Yarchei Kallah. The Rebbe would, of course, besides sending Mashka, would send his Chayzer, Rabbi Yoel, to say over the Sikha that was said at the Fabrengen again here by the Melave Malka. And we would be up late until they would come here and do that. And the Rebbe had a lot of Nachas Ruach from it. And there's the famous answer that he gave, I believe, to Rabbi Hirschberg from Mexico City, who said he was in Yarchei Kallah. And the Rebbe gave him a Chuas Chen on all the nachas that he was goyim with what he wrote there. We know that we are starting Shabbos Parshas Re'eh. Re'eh always falls out in Shabbos and Vorchim of Elul. And I believe it was the Rebbe who once said that the Rebbe is not afraid of anything except for Chodesh Elul. And Elul does not have to be something you're afraid of in a way which makes you fearful, but it has to be something that you are concerned about in a way which makes you active. And I'll leave the Mashpiyim to teach you the inyan of Anila Doidi V'Doidi Li, Sarusa de la Sata, Sarusa de la Eila. I had a sneak preview in the Dvar Machos. I think it's in this week's Maimer, which in about 10 hours I will probably learn with my Chavrusa, Rabbi Yehuda Tachtel in Berlin. We learn almost every single week the Maimer from the Dvar Machos. But over there is something that's very, very Yisayidistic. And that is, the Eibishter said, how was Kallah translated? The simple English translation as a curse. Targum Onkel is the same. But then there's another Targum Yonason, which doesn't exactly call it a curse, calls it an alternative. And the Rebbe has a whole Hesber, which I'm sure you will all learn when you'll be in yeshiva. And those who are no longer in yeshiva, when you'll take some time to learn it more be'iyun. But the Rebbe points out the difference between Targum Onkelos and Targum Yonason as being the Golos mentality and the Geula mentality. In the Golos mentality, what you see that's not a bracha looks to you like a curse. In the Geula mentality, you see the potential, because everything the Eibishter does is good, for there to be good even in something that you don't appreciate. There's another inyan that I see a connection between last week and this week. Last week we read Krishma, the first parsha. And this week we have the second parsha. And every bar mitzvah bacha knows Tefillin D'Mari Olma Maksiv Bahu, that the Tefillin of the Rabbeinu Shalom have the words of Mika Amcha Yisrael Goyechal Ba'aretz. Kallah Yisrael is the tefillin of the Rabbi Shalom. And if so, when it says that we have to put on tefillin, it's a siman that Magid V'Rav Liyakev Chukov Mishpatov, that the Eibishter also puts on tefillin. So the Eibishter has his Shal Yad and his Shorosh of Kallah Yisrael. Shorosh is, of course, the ones who excel in learning Torah, and the Shal Yad are the more Pashati Yidden, the ones who are more Barei Poyel. And this is something which the Rebbe brings down, the Baal Shemtov taught, but the Rebbe points out something so important. The Rebbe points out that in Hilchas Tefillin, you know that without a Shal Yad, you don't wear a Shorosh. Even if you reach for the Shorosh first, you go and you take the Shal Yad to put it on. Without Pu'ula, you don't have any implementation of all of the Shorosh. Without the heart, without feeling, which is the Shal Yad, you don't have all of the godless of the Moichin. As Rabbi Garelik alluded to before also, you can touch Atmos, but you have to bring it down to earth. And that's why there's another diak that the Rebbe says, that in the first parsha, first you say Vishinantam, then Ukshartam. First you have to learn, then you have to do the mitzvahs. The second parsha, it says it the other way around. Because the first parsha is V'haftas Hashem L'kecha b'chol avavcha no'ifin l'chatchila. The second parsha is Im lo yishmu v'sartem v'avadetem. We have the matzav of today. So as long as you can get someone to first do a mitzvah, you encounter a yid, ukshartem lo yisayetchem, get them to do a mitzvah, then you hope that you'll bring them to v'limadetem. If you're going to immediately try to get them involved in something that's l'chayre beyond them, you will lose them. And the Rebbe was very machshav this. And finally, the last thing, also to touch upon what my good chaver, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Kantor, said about today, going around like a yid is making a statement. It's not like it used to be 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Everyone talks about anti-Semitism and is all worried about it. That's not our tafkid to talk about all day. And it's not our tafkid to think about all day. Our tafkid is to do something about it instead. By being positive, by making sure that we walk around proud and unafraid as Yidden, as Chassidim of our Rebbe, we can make the most important statement that Jews need today everywhere in the world, which is the mitzvah that the Eibishter gave the Yidden more than any other mitzvah, not Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem and Shmiras Shabbos and all of the other mitzvahs. The mitzvah that we have in the Torah more than anything else is what? Not to be afraid. From Avram Avinu al Tira till anything else. And what did the Eibishter say? What do we see today is Parsha? What does the Eibishter want from you already? Just to be afraid of Him. If you'll be afraid of Him, you won't be afraid of anybody else. And therefore, I think that we have to look to these words, the words that the Torah tells us, in the way that the Rebbe explains it, to know that these are words that lift off the page into Ekev Tishmun. They should go deep inside to us. We should not only hear them head or dead head, and it should go into our pnimius. And the Eibishter should help them that through doing all of these mitzvahs, more yesterdays with Achona Te'el and into the new year, we're ready to be Zeicha, that the Eibishter will put before us bracha, and whatever we were waiting for that doesn't seem like a bracha should be like the Targum Yerushalmi, the Targum Yonasim, which is the mindset of Yerushalayim, that we should be able to see all of the brachas be'enei bosa mamish b'teva nira v'nigla u'malkeinu b'reishenu. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, b'shus of my father, to welcome our next speaker, someone who went on a shlichus many, many years ago, where the Rebbe sent him to a place to establish a yeshiva in a neighborhood in America that was mamish famous for being Erevas Haaretz mamish. A lot of what comes across to American culture that's not Kedusha, that's not Tahara, emanates from that section of a major city. And Dafka, in that place, a few blocks away, a small yeshiva started. I wasn't the first Talmud there, but I was probably from the second or third group. I was there in Tavshem Melave. And the yeshiva was budding, didn't even have a building yet. It was in two trailers. One was the offices and one was the Zal. But there was a budding yeshiva that Rebbe sent shluchim bochrim, and there it started to develop and develop and develop. And since then, the Rosh Yeshiva told me last year that I shouldn't speak so much about him. So this year I'm speaking instead about the yeshiva and the shlichus of the Rebbe, which is, I hope you'll be meichel, because if not, then he'll do what he did last year and he'll give me a scolding, but I'm ready to take the risk. So the yeshiva, Baruch Hashem, grew, and thousands of Talmidim went through there, and they came in there one way and they left another way, because the process brought what it means to have a chassidish place where people learn all day and all night. And I remember that when the yeshiva was about to become funded by the government, so they had to send a few Rosh Yeshivas from across America who have a group that they decide who's a real yeshiva that the government should help to support it. And I remember them speaking, which I was a little bacher. I was 12, 13 maybe at the time. And it was my job to bring them lunch. So I brought them in the lunch. And then I heard some things, the way they were talking amongst themselves, which I will not repeat because the yeshiva will get upset. But what I will say is that I'll never forget what they were saying. And from that second on, when I walked out of that room, I felt a schus to be in that yeshiva. And I think it's a schus that even though it's not so easy for him to fly around like it once was, he decided after yes, no, back and forth, that he will be mishtatif and made the tircha to come here. And I don't know how many of you are going into that yeshiva or were in that yeshiva, but all of you should listen as if you were in that yeshiva, and you'll understand why someone like me, who was there 40 years ago for 3 years, feels that it's a very special place. So therefore, I want you to please give the appropriate attention and respect to Rav Agona, Rav Chosid, Rav Ezer B'Yom HaShochet.